So let's hear it for our home team. Because we are very lucky, are we not? Yes. And we know it. So this is the last in our series about the innocent archetype. And the innocent is one who sees the good in all beings while living with eyes open to the suffering in our own lives and in the world. The wise innocent has trust and optimism and goes about one's tasks without fanfare, without trumpets blaring. Jesus said, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Just go about and do your work. Go about and do your tasks. And no trumpets before you when you give alms. Just simply do good deeds. He also said that when we do this, that the Father who sees in secret will reward you. And I want to kind of outline what I think that means today. So the innocent quality goes about doing what needs to be done. And last week I called out the quiet heroes like Mother Teresa, Irina Sendler. Irina Sendler saved children from the Jewish ghetto and concentration camps in Poland during World War II. She and her co-workers saved 2,500 children, as she personally saved 400, but she was the inspiration for this event to happen. You can read about her life in this account in a book called Life in a Jar, because what she did is she would write down the names of these children and they would get new identities so that it wouldn't be forgotten after the war, so they could see who they and remember who they were. In our own community, we have our own quiet heroes that we've also called out, our prayer chaplains, the prayer team, the garden party. I want to call out Joseph Zahn. I don't know if you know this, but Joseph clears off all the graffiti that is on the building. And there'll be graffiti on the building on a Thursday, and on a Friday, it'll be gone because he comes here quietly and he takes care of those things. Last week we talked, yay Joseph, I don't think he's here, but yay Joseph. Last week we called out Julia Hill, who went on a mission with Patch Adams, and of course our own Gail Pyper and Debbie and Laura, who go on faith medical missions. And I am going to quote Gail again because she did say this during the announcement, but she said, when I stand in front of the congregation, I imagine the over 60,000 people who have been touched by the teams that I've been part of. And I see all those people in all those countries facing the congregation and saying thank you too. So what we see is the ripples of goodness, the ripples of kindness that is not just limited to our immediate lives, but it goes out and affects more, others, thousands. And in keeping with this theme a little bit more, I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Sully yet. Treat yourself. It's very inspirational. It's like a feel-good movie, and I love it because it's based on a true story. And I know that many of you know the story that Captain Sullenberger, his flight was hit by, or they hit the birds and lost both engines, and he landed or crash-landed his airplane on the Hudson River in New York. I was in New York that day with my son Jordan, and we actually had just been by the Hudson, and it was very cold that day, and so we had to make the decision about, are we going to walk along the Hudson, or are we going to go back to our room? And we decided to go back to our room, and as we were in the subway is when the plane landed, and we came out from the subway, and the entire city was a mass of sirens. It was a cacophony of sirens and police cars flying down the street. And I said, Jordan, something big really just happened. I don't know what it is, but something big just happened. And when we got back to our room, we were able to see the unfolding of this miraculous story. What's miraculous about it is not only did Sully show up and do what was needed to be done, but so did everybody else. Everybody else on that day was a quiet hero. The ferry boat captains just went over to the plane. The passengers were standing out on the wings, and they rescued the people, the ones who fell in the water. The rescue workers came and got them. And all 155 people survived. I mean, that's a miracle, and it's a real-life miracle. And you can see that New York, not only New York, but the country, we needed a miracle like that to happen. But it wouldn't have happened, I don't think, if one person hadn't done their part in this whole big scene. And that, I think, is what Jesus meant when he said, "And the Father who sees in secret will reward you." That when we go about doing our part in whatever that may be, that there's this catchiness that begins to happen. It's like with Irina Sendler. She said, others said that she was the inspiration that caused them to also want to do good. When whether Sully said a word or not, which he didn't because he was just doing what he had to do, everyone sort of had that same energy to show up and to join in that synchronistic experience. So I believe that as you express the wise innocent and or the quiet hero, I think it triggers the wise innocent and the quiet hero in others. It is the Father who sees in secret will reward you. Another example of a quiet heroes is Frank Demartini and Pablo Ortiz. They worked for the Port Authority at the World Trade Center. And on September 11th, they were on the 88th floor when the planes hit, and it was just above them that it was on fire. And they immediately found an exit, and they gathered together all their coworkers and led them to the stairwell, including Frank's wife, who had happened to be there to have a cup of coffee, and sent them down. And he said to his wife, "I'll be right behind you." But instead of going down the stairs, he and Pablo went up. And they went up to the 89th floor, and they found people who were trapped. I think there were about 20 of them, and helped them get out. And then they went up to the 90th floor, and they helped people get out from there. They saved over 75 people, but what's interesting, that's fascinating and amazing right there, but some of the people that they saved went on and saved and helped other people. So one guy saved another 5 people. Someone else saved another 4 people. And as they were going down the stairs, everyone was not just orderly, but they were kind. Everybody stopped to help everybody else. And in an interview I saw, they said that it was as if the spirit of Frank and Pablo and the good works that they had done was catchy. It was inspirational, and so they had that same energy about them as they were going down the stairs. It's the same energy that Mother Teresa and Irina Sendler had. It's the same energy that Captain Sully had. And so they're going down the stairwell, and this one man, he's a tax attorney, he says that he's turning in the stairwell and the door opens. And all of a sudden, all these people start coming into the stairwell who had been, on one of the floors. And he said he's standing there and he's holding the door open thinking, there'll be about 3 people that come in. Well, then there's 4, and there's 7, and there's 10. And he's standing there holding the door open, and he's thinking, all right, what am I going to do? Am I going to stand here and hold this door open, or am I going to just leave the door and then head on down? And he said, I held the door and I looked up and I saw all my coworkers who were above me in the stairwell, and we were all thinking the same thing. What do we do? Do we hold the door open here and wait, or do we just go? And he said, I held the door open and I waited, and everybody came through, and once there were no more people, then they continued to go down the stairwell. If someone needed help, they were helped. If someone couldn't walk, they were assisted, and it was that way all the way down. And all of them lived except for one of the coworkers who had asthma, who was unable to get down. Frank and Pablo did not survive that experience, but their spirit infused all of the others who came down that day. Again, it's that what happens when we join together in community, what happens when we join together in love, it's like a third appears, right? Jesus said it when he said, when two or more are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst. And I think that's what he meant, that when we come together as the wise innocent, as we come together as the quiet hero, there's something else that happens, this synchronistic, miraculous energy that can start to appear. The last quality that I want to call out of the innocent is beginner's mind, because that is another quality of the innocent. And Shunryu Suzuki, it's in your bulletin, said, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. So the expert mind already knows everything, right? They can pontificate and tell you how amazing and how wonderful all the things there are that they know. But the beginner's mind is a vast open panorama and sees endless possibility. So whenever you learn something new, you are practicing beginner's mind. And so I would invite you to see learning something new as a spiritual practice, because it calls beginner's mind. So what is it that you've never done before, right? I mean, maybe taking a painting class. I've never painted. That would be a beginner's mind exercise for me to do. Anything that we're learning that is brand new calls for us to let go of everything that we already know, does it not? I think that's why traveling is so great, particularly if you're in a country and you don't speak the language. It's like your mind gets scrambled, and you have to have beginner's mind about everything. So when we learn something new, it causes us to stretch beyond our comfort zone. Jesus said, unless you become as a little child, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. And so these qualities, of course, are open-mindedness, humbleness, being without prejudice. But the other quality is also having a sense of fun and a sense of play. How much play do you have in your life? How much fun are you having in your life? Think about that and how you bring it in. Stacy Burrows of the Century City Physical Therapy said that play may seem purposeless, but neuroscience research reveals that play is our introduction to exploratory learning. Our adaptive behavior stems from problem solving in play and in our imaginary world. Modern technology reveals that play lights up the brain in such desired areas as clarity and memory. Common sense tells us that if we've been encouraged to play as a child, beginner's mind comes more naturally as an adult. So when you're playing, when you're having fun, you're doing something. Okay, does that make you feel better? You're working. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Einstein said that creativity is intelligence having fun. So when you're being creative, you're intelligent and having fun. So I would encourage you, if you haven't signed up for a home group, you can do it today. It might be the last day. But we're stretching and we're playing with this series in a different way than we've done before, because we're doing a little play acting. An example is yesterday, Diane and I met with some of the facilitators of the group, and the exercise was that we were to pretend to be gods and goddesses. And we had to sit in our stance, and our voice was to change, and you could be whatever god or goddess you wanted to be. I was Athena. And you had to, that's because the book said, anyway, you had to speak for your human. And so I, as Athena, talked about my favorite human, Karen, and all the things that she does. And then we went around the circle, and one person was Kali and spoke for her human, and James Tierney was Zeus. He looks like Zeus, by the way. If you take a look at him, he kind of looks like Zeus. And he spoke for his human, James. And at first, it was sort of like we didn't know what we were doing, and we felt a little stupid. But isn't that what it is about? Isn't that what play and fun is about? And the beginner's mind is that you step out, and you're not exactly sure what you're doing. And this is what we're doing in our home groups this time. We're stretching out and we're playing in a different way than we have before. So when you're out of your comfort zone, know that you're connecting to present present moment, and beginner's mind. Beginner's mind calls us to ask the question, what is happening now? It invites us to be in the present moment. And I read a story this week that was fascinating to me by a man named John David Mann. He said at the age of 17, and he doesn't know why he did this, but at the age of 17, he took everything out of his bedroom, moved it out into the hall, and then he would put it back in a different place. And he would do this like every couple of months or so. And he said his parents never said a word to him. They never okay, it's a little weird. But he would take his furniture out and put it back in a different place. And he said that he realized later that what he was doing was almost practicing for the changes in life that we go through, that we experience. So in growing up, of course, he had different jobs, different relationships, went and got an education. And he said, each time I woke up in a new career, it felt as if I had stepped out of the room for a moment, only to come back in and find it completely rearranged with all different furniture. The only thing all those lives seemed to have in common were that they were all some version of me. So what is the me? Is it the stuff in the room, or is it the empty room? He said in his 20s, I had a son at 10 months who took ill and died, and the marriage did not survive, and all at once I found myself staring at that empty room. So he's calling in the beginner's mind in the empty room, and he said that he's a writer, and that every time he sits down to write, he must be in beginner's mind. All those of you who are writers or in creative, in any endeavor, you need to enter it with a blank space, right? You need to enter it with a beginner's mind, with an empty room, if you will. And then he says about his current life, he said, the sound of the catbird outside my window. This is being in the present moment. Our dog Ben snoring on the bed, the taste of morning toast, the feel of my wife's hand in mine as we walk the neighborhood. He says, I asked the question, who took out all the furniture from my room while I was sleeping and replaced it with all this amazing stuff? And isn't that our lives? Sometimes there's some pretty amazing stuff that shows up in our rooms. So this month we have, and I hope we continue to, activate the innocent archetype. May we all be wise innocents. May we all be quiet heroes. May we all see the good in people and in situations, and may we enter each day with beginner's mind. As we go about our tasks, may we be like Sully and Mother Teresa and Gail and Joseph Zahn, and not let the left hand know what the right hand is doing, but we just go about and do our tasks, and the Father who sees in secret will reward you. It is catchy, and I believe it creates miraculous synchronicities. So may we enter each day with beginner's mind, because you don't know, this could be the best day of your life.